Hey there, and welcome to yet another endless seasonal Dream Realm boss guide. So for today's Dream Realm boss guide, we'll cover the final boss for this season, which is Lone Gaze. So this will be the final Dream Realm video for this season, so we have to wait until the next season once we get new toys or even new units, or if I discover any brand new meta with the new units to come, then I'll probably talk about them, right, for the various bosses. But if not, assuming that everything is constant, right, the meta doesn't shift too much, then this will be the end game guides, or this series of the seasonal Dream Realm boss guides. This will be the final one. Okay, so for those of you guys who are searching for all the early to mid game ones, I've shifted all the seasonal Dream Realm boss guides into the AFK Journey Dream Realm playlist. So in the future, if there are future Dream Realm videos, it will also go into that playlist. So for those of you guys who just started out Song of Strife, you guys can visit the early to mid game videos. For those of you guys who are at where I am right now, or maybe like at Hell mode or very close to the Endless mode, you guys can refer to the end game meta itself. So secondly, right, for today's boss, there will be, I'll offer two different variants in terms of the best teams. So this is the current best teams in terms of the higher min maxing, in terms of the final damage output. But as you guys can see on screen right now, we are running two celestial hypogean units, which are generally not like F2P considerations. So I'll offer another team build where we utilize Raina, which is a cheaper team option for you guys. So that will be team 2, right? This will be team 1 in terms of the team builds. Then I'll offer other alternatives in terms of who you can sub out, what are the different options you can group the different units with, and then potentially achieve better damage or achieve good damage on your own account. Okay, so let's start with this very first team first. So this one gave this account the max damage of around 39.5 bill. So this is the best damage, 39.8 billion, right? So I've seen higher accounts reaching 40 billion or even 41 billion with this exact same team. So we are running Friesto for the stats, for the buffs he can provide. So we are giving damage reduction to OD, because what we observe from this boss is that this boss has a massive wolf attack from the ultimate, right? So this wolf attack hits at 10, 40 and 70 seconds, and it hits like a truck. So it usually attacks the leftmost corner unit, which is where OD is currently standing. At the same time, you don't want this boss to kill any of your units, because you don't want the boss to gain stats. So this boss will gain defense, physical as well as magical, as well as haste when he kills any target. So your goal when you build a team is to keep everyone alive. You don't want anyone dying, because if any one of your units starts dying, at least in the endless mode, the rest of the other units will not survive long, right? They will just start to get rolled over by the boosted stats of the boss, and the increase in defense will also lower your overall damage output, which is what you don't want. So right here we are using OD, right, Coco as well as Smokey, the core maulers, and then we are putting OD behind Friesto for the damage reduction, and then we are using Skalita as well. So Skalita turns out to be one of the stronger damage dealer against this boss. I think partially because this boss have a evasion skill in the ultimate, where if the enemy is attacking within the mist itself, they have a very high chance of missing the attack. So let me find the skill. Yeah, so there is a part in the ultimate. Let me just quickly glance through it. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so over here, the Wolf King has a 30% chance to dodge the damage skills from enemies within the mist. So specifically for Skalita, right, this unit will always run really close to the boss. So this unit is like most of the time not within the mist, which means that her attacks are not dodgeable, or rather the boss cannot dodge her attack as long as she's not within the mist cloud. So that's one reason why Skalita is actually the better damage dealer, as you guys will see later on. So this is the team, right? I'll showcase the first damage, and then I'll talk about the second team recommendation. So the artifact of choice is a evocation spell, because evocation spell benefits from true damage. And for this team to work, right, number one, you will need Skalita to have at least her EX weapon unlocked, because you need her true damage, because before she gets her EX weapon, she deals physical damage, which means that she gets reduced damage the more HP the boss loses. So this will reduce her damage output a little bit. So that's one disclaimer. Number two, for the Coco and Smokey, if you want higher damage, you need Smokey with EX weapon. If you want better survival, you need the shield from Coco, which is also her EX weapon. So these are the units which the EX weapon will matter a lot. So as you guys can see over here, right, our OD almost died, but thanks to the damage reduction provided by our dear Freyasto, he was able to survive with a slither of health and then heal back up with the likes of Smokey's heal as well as Coco's damage reduction and shielding. So the damage reduction is important to keep your unit alive, and obviously the Hypogene and Celestial factions is basically increasing the overall damage output as well as survival of your team by giving you more HP and attack. So in the end, we did even more damage than our peak damage. So this is 40 billion damage, and let us take a look at the damage distribution. So as you guys can see, Smokey actually did more damage than OD. So partially it's because of the magical damage increase, the scaling of magical damage. Secondly, it's also because of the dodge from the boss. So just now we went through that if you're within the maze, the boss gain increased dodge rate, whereas OD is one unit which relies a lot on the normal attack. So a lot of his attack will be dodged by the boss within the maze itself. That's why his damage output is actually lower than Smokey. Whereas Smokey's Cloud, right, it's a massive AoE that cannot be dodged, so the boss will take damage no matter what. And then for Skalita's case, I mentioned earlier, because this unit always sticks to the boss, so this unit is not within the maze, at least when the boss is outside of the maze itself. So her attacks are landing more, and that's why she's dealing more damage compared to OD on this one. So this is the more expensive Divine Comp, but this is the best damage comp. Okay, so this is the placement. This is it. Okay, let's move on to the next team setup. The next team setup will be one with Raina. So the core will still be these three, but instead of Freyasto as well as Skalita, we will be using the two very commonly used units, right, that people probably have in their collection, which is Corin and Raina. So for this one, I think we do have a choice. We can choose between Evocation Spell or even Crescent Spell. And I think I'll use Evocation Spell for this one, because later on I want to showcase another team which includes Satrana. So I'll use Crescent Spell for that. So this is Raina, right? This is the cheaper option. Let's start the battle, okay? So I think using the mage team is also a pretty good idea, because the boss can't actually dodge the magical damage coming out from the Crescent Spell. So you guys will see later on the magical team variant. So this is one running Raina, Corin together with the Molar Core. Later on, we will take out our dear Raina and then put in Satrana for a comparison. So for this boss itself, you can also choose to run Corin as the carry. I personally won't recommend Merilee, because Merilee is, I'll say, quite frail, and she often positions herself in very awkward positions against this boss, where she gets sniped off pretty easily, even with Raina's damage reduction, even with Freyasto's damage reduction. That means that she's not going to stay on the field long enough to deliver long and consistent damage, which means that I think specifically for this boss, Merilee is probably not the best option, specifically for Endless for this boss itself. So you can use OD. Corin is okay, because Corin has some shielding and Corin deals true damage. So I'll showcase Corin later as well. So this is the variant with Corin and Raina. So you link Raina to Corin because Raina will be the backmost unit and he will be pretty frail. So he will die pretty easily, right, if you don't protect him. That's why you link him to Corin. So this is the second team option, right? Way less damage, because now we are increasing the damage dealt on the boss. But compared to having the dual core strategy with Skalita as well as OD, we only have one core for this one. So Smokey is still dealing damage, but lesser than the previous team because of lesser stats. And then we have Corin, which is, I would say, still okay damage comparing it to Freyasto, but because we are running like two supportive unit with lesser damage output, the damage overall is a bit lower. So this is one variant that you guys can use. So the next variant that you guys can use is the Satrana variant. So this is the mage team. I'm gonna take out Raina. We're gonna put in Satrana. So for Satrana's case, right, Satrana doesn't really need to be linked to Torrent, because like I mentioned earlier, the wolf attack will actually attack OD at the back line. So you did rather link him to Torrent to protect OD from dying, because he's more frail and he's less tanky compared to Satrana. For Satrana's case, right, even though this boss is a physical attacker, Satrana has actually a damage reduction skill in the hero focus, so she's actually decently tanky. And since she's always on the front line with the support of Coco as well as Smokey, I think overall she will survive decently well as well. So for this case, we are going to run the Crescent spell, which is the mage one. So let's start the battle. So for carry, for the substitutes earlier, I mentioned you can substitute Corin. If you don't have Coco, you can use Lucius with the shielding as well as the Heart of Unity support for the buffs for your team. For if you don't have Smokey, okay, if you don't have Smokey, I think any of the Wilders healer work as well. But generally, I think I mentioned this multiple times. I think for Smokey's case, I don't think any other support does the same job or does his job as well. So whoever you're gonna switch Smokey out with, it will be a downgrade. So do take note of that, even though they do have some buffs on themselves. So like for example, for Hewin, she has a single target buff skill, right? So if your Hewin is higher stats, use her. Right, if your Smokey is higher stats, use Smokey instead. Okay, so depending on the final stats of your unit, depending on your tier, try to trial and error with the different units you have to see which one will give you the better combo, as I mentioned multiple times. So that's for this boss. So this is the magical team. Okay, even less damage than Raina, because Raina's 20% damage reduction is consistently sticking on the boss, and it not only boosts the damage output of OD, right, it also boosts the damage output of other units. Whereas I think Satrana's case, she offers the boost for OD, but the damage output is a little bit lower. Okay, so this is for the 3 teams I have. If you don't have, let's say if you don't have Raina, or if you don't have Torrent, right, you can use Audial Corin together with Raina. So this is one option that you guys can try, and then use evocation spell. So in Endless mode, Corin can be a pretty decent semi carry as well. So this is one team which I want to showcase. Okay, the best damage dealer for this boss, after a few rounds of experimenting, right, is between OD, Corin as well as Skalita. So depending on the team you're using, depending on how you boost the carries, each of them will do different amounts of damage. However, the best team is the duo core with OD as well as Skalita, because of the stats that the whole team has, right? It's a 5 Mauler stat boost with 2 Hypogean units, so it's like a 22% bonus, pretty big. Yeah, so that's why that team offers like the best survival to damage ratio. So this is the Corin setup. So this is one team alternative that you guys can use as well. I'm thinking this team should probably do 35 bill or 34 bill damage. Should be pretty similar to the Torrent Raina comp. Yeah, but because for this one, I think Raina will die around the 10-second mark, right? The final wolf attack. So this is the final wolf attack. So this is where I think Raina will actually die, because I don't think Corin's shield and the sustain is enough. Hopefully he doesn't. Okay, so I think Corin's shield was sufficient, but the damage output was not really impressive as well. So 30 build for this one. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that Merilee might not be that good of a carry, but after certain thought, I think there's actually a way to make her work, and that is to just stack damage reduction on her this way. Right, so I tried her with Freyasto's damage reduction alone. It's not enough. She will die around the 2nd or 3rd ultimate, which will greatly reduce your damage. And if I use her with Raina alone, right, she will also die. So I think you need both Raina as well as Freyasto's damage reduction to keep her alive until the end of timer, which is why we got this team combi over here. So we have Freyasto's illusion in front, we have the main body on Coco, so she gets her ultimate off, and then, you know, with all the massive damage reduction stacking, your whole team can stay alive for a little bit longer. So this is the final team variation which I want to talk about. Specifically for this boss, I think Merilee needs quite a bit of protection to keep herself going, to keep herself alive, and Merilee's damage will become greater over time, right? Or if you can stack up her true damage from her EX weapon faster. So that's why you need to keep her alive. If she doesn't have the protection of Raina or Frey-Esto, she's not going to survive past the third one, right? I think sometimes she even just dies at the second one. So that's one issue. And even with this team setup, what I realized is that Raina will be the vulnerable one. So once Raina starts falling around the 30-second mark, the boss will get a buff, and then your other units might start falling from there, which will also lower your overall damage output. Okay, so right here, I think it's around here. I think Raina might fall. If Raina doesn't fall there, I think our overall damage will be a little bit higher. And this is potentially one team comp that you guys can try to use with Merilee. Okay, I think that's good. We managed to keep Raina alive. Very, very nice. So the Wolf RNG is in our favor for this one. So I think Merilee should still stay alive all the way until the end. Okay, very, very nice over there. So 33 billion. Okay, so this is another team on alternative for you guys. Okay, so if you don't have Frey-Esto, you can obviously link Merilee to Corin to sort of protect her. So I think for Merilee to work, you need to find some way to keep her alive, right? You need to give her damage reduction, or you need to run even more healers, right? So that the healings can stack on each other and then keep her healthy. Or you link her to Corin so that Corin can take some of her damage. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys again in my next AFK journey video. Bye guys.